What is the effect of eating the same calories of unhealthy food versus the same calories of clean food? Will it make you leaner or put on less fat even though you're eating the same calories and macros? I think the important thing to highlight here is that you're eating the same macros, meaning you're eating the same amount of protein. While there really is no category for unhealthy foods versus clean foods, for the category of unhealthy foods, we'll look at processed foods. The problem with processed foods is they are typically deficient in protein. But when equating for protein, there are a few interesting findings. When you eat a meal of processed foods versus whole foods, your postprandial, meaning after the meal, energy expenditure is 50% higher eating the whole foods. And this is likely due to the fact that the whole foods simply take more energy to properly digest and absorb. In comparison, by nature of them being processed, the processed foods are much more easily and rapidly absorbed. With that being said, this difference is likely going to be less than 100 calories. And given that you alter your caloric intake or energy expenditure, such that by the end of the day you are in the same caloric deficit, there will likely not be differences in weight loss. And given that your protein intake is the same, there will likely be no differences in fat loss or muscle gain. With that being said, protein absorption from certain processed foods may be lower than that of whole foods. Therefore, despite eating the same amount of protein, you may not actually absorb as much. Additionally, processed foods typically do not have as many micronutrients, and an insufficient intake of micronutrients may decrease your energy expenditure. And this could be simply due to a decrease in metabolic rate due to decreased thyroid production, because we need specific micronutrients such as iodine and selenium for properly functioning thyroid, or the fact that some of these micronutrients are extremely important for allowing us to feel energized, and the less energized and motivated you are, the lower your energy expenditure will be. Therefore, one of the reasons that processed foods may increase weight gain is due to a decrease in caloric expenditure. But given that you make up for this by simply eating less, but maintaining the same protein intake, since you'll be in the same caloric deficit, there will likely be no or very, very minimal differences in weight loss. So why are processed foods so highly associated with weight gain? This brilliant study demonstrated that ultra-processed diets cause excessive calorie intake. They found that when allowed to eat ad libitum, or as much as they wanted, individuals may eat about 500 calories more of processed foods than they would of whole foods. And another study with another fantastic title that gives you all the information that you need demonstrates that unlike ultra-processed food, minimally processed foods are associated with favorable patterns of protein intake and diet quality, highlighting that in ultra-processed food diets, there's typically a low protein intake and low diet quality, meaning low micronutrient intake. With that being said, I want to introduce you to Professor Mark Halbs, who, in order to actually experiment the effects of processed versus unprocessed foods, ate a diet consisting entirely of Little Debbie's snacks, Doritos, chips, sugary cereals, and Oreos. He also ate one protein shake per day, and he saw reductions in body fat, improvements in cholesterol, and overall blood parameters of health. While this diet may not be sustainable for the long term, it does demonstrate the significance of macronutrient intake and maintaining a caloric deficit on improving health markers. However, the one thing he did mention is he was excessively hungry, because once again, as we know, ultra-processed foods are not very satiating. With that being said, this diet may not be sustainable due to the likelihood of micronutrient deficiencies. So in essence, when comparing unhealthy food versus healthy food, the big difference is the protein and micronutrient content. With that being said, given that you equate for protein, you may be able to take a very short period of time with a lower micronutrient intake and still achieve the same results. However, it may require you to decrease your food more significantly to maintain a caloric deficit, or purposefully increase your activity more. And now, I'm in no way advocating for the consumption of highly processed foods, because as the consumption of processed foods in the diet increases, the amount of protein, micronutrients, and satiety will typically decrease, which could negatively impact your body composition and make losing weight a little bit more difficult. But I hope this video is helpful in demonstrating the most important factors when it comes to weight loss and body composition, which is going to be protein intake and whether or not you're in a caloric surplus or deficit depending on your goal. And I also hope this video illustrates why I'm not going around demonizing specific foods or specific food groups. Because once again, given that we hit the big rocks of caloric consumption and protein consumption, and micronutrient intake, which typically will require a less processed diet. However, given that you hit these three targets, I don't think it's worth arguing about the extremely subtle nuances. And it also provides you great freedom as to what you can eat while still hitting your goals. And if you're ready to take control of your health and energy, send me a DM to sign up for coaching.